I'm Russell Du Preez from the Russell Stone Group. We're in the agricultural investment space, and we try to figure out how to build a portfolio that can last 100 years or multi-generation. Because you're sitting with most businesses that stop existing after usually the third generation. How can you build a company that can last through these generations? And it's not about the money, but it's actually around the transferal of profound knowledge from one generation to the next. Money is only the conduit to do this. For there's a balance between this human side and the environment and the holistic approach of the world. So we're sitting here with a situation in the group trying to figure it out in the journey. And we've got a saying, the journey is the goal, rather than only having one single goal on a strategic approach. So from my point of view, this is what we keep ourselves busy with. First of all, we have a approach on certain sections of the market that we think that will always be around. So we call it the BFUF. So the BFUF stands for technology, health, energy, banking, education, entertainment, food, arbitrage, and fashion. So having that in mind, how do we go and approach this broad, different industries? And to a large extent, it starts with consciousness of looking at the arbitrage of each of these. Behind this sits a little bit of a approach or a consciousness of what do we know. There's certain stuff we know, and we've got a list of about 15. I think I will handle about 5 of the 15. Number one, inflation is something that is a very complex topic. And the topic on inflation, sometimes you have inflation and sometimes you have deflation. For instance, if I look at this camera, 10 years ago you would have paid a huge amount of money for this technology base. In the same price range that we're paying today for a camera, actually what you get for it is deflation in value. So the concept of inflation, I think any businessman needs to understand what they're busy with in that concept. And you're sitting with, the same time, you're sitting with interest rates that has a function on real income and also the cost of money with inflation over it. Then we obviously understand demographics. Demographics is such a huge topic today because it's not the same as only have population growth. You have a distribution of more people are on the earth, but at the same time certain pockets have a deflation in population growth. So how do you understand that side of it? So having this view of 100 years of a business, we need to end up thinking, how do we bring the BFUF with the economic models we know at the back? And we have a matrix on deciding how we can blend these two and where the opportunities are. Business is not about the business you're in, but rather in the culture you are. And the culture, well, we believe in tribalism in the business, whereby any tribe's got certain kind of elements, attributes that we need to understand so that we have a cohesive team that can go for the goal that you put up. So after that, we know that there's usually constraints in businesses. So we know that a constraint needs to be attacked, and we're very involved in the theory of constraint. There's a book, The Goal, that basically starts this process of theory of constraint. So running a portfolio, having a long-term view, you need to have some kind of matrix that you would need to approach on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. So that, in short, is our approach towards the business. Branding as a whole sits in an ever-changing environment. I think the choices that consumers has today, we need to reevaluate branding capacity or branding value in this. What do we try to do with a brand is to make it easier for a consumer that walks into some kind of a retail store and needs to make 50 choices. Usually the consumer wants to make it easy and quick because time is of the essence. So branding, to a large extent, help that process for the consumer to make a quick decision. Am I going to buy this bacon or am I going to buy that bacon? And obviously, out of branding, there's a concept of Deming, where quality is the essence of any brand, so that you make it easy for a consumer. So out of a branding point of view, I think the world is in such a difficult place to know how to get your message over to the consumer, because you don't know what kind of marketing you should do. This online platforms we have today gives some kind of exposure, but in the old days it was equal spent towards revenue, and today it's a different story. I think society will figure it out in the next 10 years. How do we get our message over? And what kind of measure should we take into consideration? In the past, it was demographics, and I do think that has died down, and rather go and look for values. There's a book, The Death of Demographics, and in this book, I think it was 54 values that they basically looked at, and I think values is a more important play today in society, in branding, than pure, I'm 20 years old, I'm going to market to a 20-year-old. And I think that is where branding in the next 10 years need to focus on. Why we in agriculture today is that the technology benefits that we can get from the improvements that is available. I mean, if we go back in time, the computing power and the DNA of genetics were not available. We see this purely as the industry to be in, no matter if it's export-based or import substitution or higher kilograms per pig or more feed conversion rate on chickens. The point is, technology is in the favor of agriculture. I'm so excited about agriculture as an investment portfolio focus, rather than purely, oh, we're providing food for somebody. This is the place to be. I rather be into that side of the equation of where technology can play a huge role in the yield that you can earn at the end of the day. Whereby energy's got the same kind of technology overlay, whereby the amount of R&D going into this industry is huge. We're going to see a fragmented energy layer rather than the centralized production of energy. So I'm very excited about agriculture with energy, because water is energy through the plant that you produce, the type of animal you produce. So it just makes sense to look at this kind of industry. Yes, of course, the geopolitical environment of the world plays a huge role, but at the end of the day, it's about the labor that is best allocated in a certain region. And we have absolute advantages on quite a few products, like cattle. We've got cheap land, we've got a high productive environment on growing grass, we have the labor that can manage it. So agriculture in South Africa, although it's a global platform, I do think that having a focus on what we're really good at. I think we're not so good in growing chickens, in the sense that the raw materials are not so productive as in Brazil or America. And we should sometimes rather import, and I know it's very political, rather import the chickens and export the beef, which is a higher value. So in my view, it's a complex question on what does Ukraine and Russia and Israel and all that has got to do with a long-term 20-year approach on agriculture, because agriculture is not a short-term play. It's a long-term value addition. I'm a student of economics. It's a very question that I struggle with every day. The question usually is, how do we allocate scarce resources? And for me, the best way to look at it is, why did the Industrial Revolution start in England and not somewhere else? And what was the elements that really propelled this process in England? And a few things basically happened. It was not the steam engine, it was actually individual freedom and the right to own your own productive capacity. So in the long run, the only thing that we need to do is to have this tension between individual freedom and collective benefit. And somewhere along the line, if we can get those two together, we solve the problem. So in management or in economics, we need enough individual freedom, and that is why the Western societies has a greater GDP as Eastern or other societies in the world per capita. Can we lose the freedom in the Western societies? Of course. And we're not saying it's right or wrong. We just say out of a data point of view, Western societies with the value systems that was acquired over many years was more successful than have a collective system. So individual freedom is the essence. The labor allocation or division of labor, as the economist would say, is such an essential part, because labor is the most scarce resource. Oh, but we have 30% unemployment. So no, we have the wrong labor for the wrong activity. So it's not about the volume of labor, is what the labor can do. And the allocation of the labor to the right job is what we are struggling with in economics. So how do we make that flywheel go is the question. And my view is support businesses, support individual freedom, support the creativity of people more than anything else, and have the insight to know that collective needs, because there's a utility. The utility that I get from a glass of water in the desert is different to having a glass of water in the place where there's enough water. So diamonds got no value in the desert when I need water. So utility of labor or utility of needs is such an essential part of allocating natural resources that is available. We come from 6,000 years of fragmented energy. So everybody went and picked up his own fuel through wood or peat or whatever they had available. And somewhere along the line, we went into a centralized environment where you had a grid with coal fire, plants, and then we distributed through a grid. And all of a sudden, with renewable revolution of energy, we will go back to the old days where we produce our own energy at source or at consumption place. Africa is going to be the wireless continent, is my prediction. Will we have some kind of a dualistic approach? And if you're not in energy in the long run, I think you're losing a very lucrative industry that you can play the technology layer over it, because we are so incentivized as human beings at the moment to find alternative solutions to our age-old industry. And energy will be with us always in some kind of form. I think you just need to be in it, and you should only be in it and have consciousness over this industry for the long term. It's about having the right attitude into business. So what creates capital? So capital is the foundation of where we grow from. So people have a misconception on capital. Capital is conscious labor. And the concept of conscious labor is somebody that would see an opportunity, and through that opportunity, for instance, I've got an example usually where somebody saw a cow walking through the field, and the cow had put a dung down, and somewhere the guy had the consciousness to see that this wheat were growing better, and he thought that maybe putting next season dung over the whole field would increase his yield, and usually that creates a surplus of production. And out of the surplus of production, he went out and bought a cow, and the cow gave a yield on a calf. And then he realized that actually by using his IP, intellectual property, to go and buy his neighbor and take that knowledge and expand his yield or surplus. That is the essence of any business, is to create something out of nothing and create a surplus so that that can be used to be employed into a next opportunity. And so the journey of discovering what really makes a bigger yield, I think, is a lot by chance and luck. And if you have the ability to do a business of 10 million, you can do a business of 300 million. It's about how do you activate the people that can report into you, or how big is your vision, and can you multiply labor into the right sections of your business, because motivating people is the essence. Capital is people. People are capital, and we sometimes miss it. It's not money. It's the creativity of human beings, and it's such a pity that we see that, oh, I need money to build a new business or a bigger business. It's not. It's energy, the kilojoules that you take in, and the consciousness of looking around you. Other example I usually take is, what type of car do you drive? If I drive a Volvo, I will only see Volvos on the road. So handling the capital side just now on where does capital come from through the consciousness of labor. We know that raising capital is not the question, is raising the creativity or the conscious labor. But after you have the idea, usually people says, no, I do need some kind of living expense to live out this creative thinking, because a business starts with buying and selling something, and somewhere along the line you need to have some kind of energy, food for yourself to pursue this idea. So capital, as we traditionally understands it as having money to go and achieve a goal, should come from trust. So somebody trusts in your idea, in your person, in your values, and that is where you need to focus on. The kind of business you're in, of course, makes a huge amount of importance that the model is not broken. But the best thing that you can focus on is your value system there? Is the trust that somebody needs to put into you, because their capital that they need to transfer to you is from their creative thought, and that they want to use on a later date when they lost their creativeness or the energy to work. So for anybody to trust in you to put money into your business is of the essence. So in my view, if people don't trust in you, you will not raise capital. And obviously society's got all kinds of different methods today on how to create the trust and its diligence and its where do you find the money? There's money to be found if the idea is all right. There is trust in your systems on protecting somebody else's labor that they want to use later on. So there's many platforms that you can go and look for capital, and bank is obviously one of those. The bank needs to trust that they will get their money back on debt. But at the end of the day, go and find other entrepreneurs or family or friends or anybody that might trust in you. That's the place where you find capital. First of all, you need to understand what the goal of your trade is. Do you want to make money? Do you want excitement? Do you want a quick gain? So in my view, the question should be, I want to make money in the long term so that I can use it for a later period. I think a lot of people trade purely for fun and excitement, and I totally get it. I mean, I get a kick from putting a trade on in anything. Is crypto the next big thing and the place where we're going to have our savior? No. Is it going to be any stock? No. The place where you will find the best investment is in yourself, because you have control over yourself. Well, some of us do and some don't. I sometimes don't. And my emotions get involved and I get excited and pulled in. It's not about the asset you play in. If my best advice can be, if you want to save for later use without complexity, go and buy an index, the Dow or the Aussie, and all the elements of inflation and emotions and economic macros are in there. If you want to go and have a stock picking approach, good luck, because professionals do not get it right. I would say today, with an interest rate of 12%, just go and put it in the bank. Find a place where you can get 11.75 kind of yield. That would be the safest compounding return, and all the Great Boss, Dead Boss books and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Buffett, and all these other books that you can go and read. Go and do it if you do it for excitement. If you do it for making money, keep it simple, stupid. Don't go and try to be too clever. There's absolutely opportunities in certain individual stock. Know what you're doing if you get involved in it. But once again, keep it simple, stupid. And I'm trying to do that. There's certain stuff, understand the inflation, understand the interest rate, understand geopolitical, but keep it simple, stupid. What a wonderful question, in the sense that so many things change, but so many stays the same. One thing, and if you're honest with yourself, human nature stays the same. It's about self-interest. Tonight, when I will go and put my head on my pillow, I will think what's best for me. In that is, even if I have to give some kind of money to somebody else, it would be in my benefit. Even if I feel good about giving money away, it's still in my self-interest for my ego. Due to utility differences in human beings, you always sit with this dilemma on what is value. And value is subjective, in the sense that I can't measure it. I actually just read a book again called Human Nature from Ludwig von Mises. And human action will not change. Everything will stay the same. The tools we get in our toolbox is so exciting, and we're going to have such a great productivity gain in the next 20 years if we can get our emotions intact. If we can't get that right, we will see wars again, and we will see wars again. Well, we're seeing it now. So religion has always been with us and will always be with us, because we need this kind of feeling that the unseen we have no understanding of. So how do we understand this realm of spirituality that we do not understand, that we all experience? Human in the next generation will have to come to some kind of grip with that. But at the end of the day, we human beings, we driven by our own actions, with our own value system, with our own value perception on what a glass of water will give me in utility. So that concept of utility that each and everybody gets from a different thing is going to stay the same. So number one, I do think that any serious thinker or somebody that done half his homework to understand the throughput of what carbon is all about. So if we take soya beans as an alternative to meat, how do we plant soya beans? How many diesel do we use per hectare to plow or to till, to plant, to spray, to get the soybean seed produced? How do we get it from the farm to the crushing plant? If you take soya beans and you need to crush it, and you take the soya meal and you use it with hexane, which is absolutely petrol that you use to take the oil out of it, as a plant-based protein, I don't think the balance sheet, if you really think about it, between what a cow that is putting dung onto the field, the root system of grass is much deeper than the root system of soya beans, and what the whole balance sheet between the two are all about, I really do think that some people are missing the point, or really do not understand agriculture, do not understand what it's all about. I mean, we do carbon capturing in the sense of planting trees that will be there for as long as it will survive. And but it's all about the roots, and we need to capture carbon into the roots. It's a holistic approach. There's so much to be said about meat and the benefits of meat on stunting in Africa, and how do we get children to develop a bigger nurturing ability, and so forth. So it's such a huge subject that I can really talk about for a half an hour. So in my view, we need to save the planet. There's no doubt. The way to do this is holistic and really think through it. Is batteries really better than fossil fuels? Because if you look at the batteries that the elements are mined from, please just think holistic about it, because I do think that animal protein is not on a balance sheet basis worse than soya beans with Roundup Ready, with diesel, with harvesting cost, with crushing cost, sending it through different processes, and we don't even know what these plant-based grown laboratory food might do to our health as well, because this might be different to GMO. I do not understand. So number one, we're all on the same journey in life, trying to understand ourselves, the emotions. I mean, we need to think about love. We need to think about what we need for our children. We need to understand what we need for ourselves. And the past few weeks, I've really been back into Maslow, try to understand what motivates people, and why am I on the journey I'm on at the moment. Is self-actualization is actually the top of the pyramid, and it's trying to find your full potential as a human being. And people do not realize that is what entrepreneurs and successful people, or guys, when do you have enough? It's not about that. I have the potential to impact people with my talents and bring it to the full fruit that by luck I received from the universe, from God, and I believe in God, in Christ. So the value system, serving other people, is the foundation of bringing your full potential to bear the most beautiful fruit possible. So traveling and having the ability to see opportunities is at the essence for my talent base. I can see, due to the fact that I have developed some kind of consciousness on certain of these defined areas, I can't help to see opportunities all over the place. My wish in life is to honestly bring my full potential to my neighbor, or to humans around me that were not so lucky to be born in a environment where I couldn't read, didn't have a very big academic performance in school. Really, it was terrible. Had the luck to go to university despite of that, with all the insecurities and doubts that I have as a human being on, am I good enough? Can I make it? Will I mess it up along the way? And most probably that insecurity will stay with me. So in my view, every person needs to go to this personal journey and to find the gold at the end of the rainbow. And a good book I read recently was The Alchemist. And to some extent, that is all our journey. I mean, be true to yourself, go and find, in my view, your shadows, and know that it's okay. As long as you don't hurt somebody else, and obviously we do, but it's not the intent to do. But if you do, go and do self-introspection to really think, how can I do better? And I'm definitely gonna disappoint people in my life. It's not my intent. It's truly, I hope my children will one day look up to me and say, I've done okay, I've tried to do my full potential. And I think if every person wants to develop their full potential, we will be in a great world. I think this concept that entrepreneurial environment today is destructive. It's not. Then the big thing is you need growth to generate enough profit so that you can employ more people or take more risks in something else. You need yield, because otherwise activity is only activity. Activity is not productivity. We need to focus on productivity, because if you go and do some kind of task, digging a hole, and you throw the soil back into the hole, you worked all day, but there was no productivity. We need to focus on true productivity of the resources we have. We need to focus on using the resources that is scarce so that we can yield better productivity in society. We don't focus on productivity. Of course, a healthy labor workforce is much better than a sick one. Of course, a labor that is happy is much more productive than one that is not. Of course, we need to look at the human interaction in your teams or your tribal environment. There's no doubt in my mind that a holistic approach of what we are doing today is the right approach. I mean, this legacy thing, I'm very worried about that it becomes very egocentric, because the ego is the enemy. And so I've got a thinking recently about how do we as a society evolves and get better. And I saw the picture of almost a wall, like being built through generations, and every brick is almost one life that left some kind of profound knowledge so that the next generation can build on it. And so what is the profound knowledge that you would like to leave for your children or the company's next generation leaders and workers? Because we all have the ability to find this secrets. And it's not a secret. I mean, there's so many books that you see on all kinds of social media. Read this, read that, and all that. I think truth and honesty, and to some extent, I think that was what my dad told me with the incident that we had. You can lie to anybody as long as you don't lie to yourself. And so many people lie to themselves for whatever reason, maybe due to the ego. So get rid of the ego, believe in finding the truth about yourself. I think if you have a win-win environment, I mean, a win-lose or a lose-win will not last for a long time. I think without goals in life, you're in real trouble. Put yourself in another person's shoes to understand them better. I would definitely look at that. I think you need to constantly learn something new to create value. I would read. I mean, there's so much, it's so much easier today to read or listen rather than read. So in my view, the foundation of it must be truth, and find your own inner weaknesses and also your strengths, and focus on what you're good at, and go and find people that support you on where you're weak. And I think that is the message.